Good morning, everyone. It is October the 23rd, 2025. Before I get into the next video that I'm going to put up, I want to talk about where we were. Can everybody remember where we were 5 years ago? It is 2025 now. Where were we and what were we doing in 2020? Well, I can remember, and everyone else should remember, and the whole world should remember, because we were in the start of the pandemic 5 years ago. We had our politicians here in Canada. They were just voted in the fall, just before we got into the pandemic. They were just getting themselves started. Yes, they had promised a lot of things in the 5 years that before they were going to be reelected, which we were forced because of the circumstances. We would have been going this October for the vote for 5 years for our politicians, for our federal politicians again. However, because of circumstances, the pandemic, they were not always able to give us what we needed. And the rules, the regulations, what they promised, they couldn't. But what they did do, thankfully, and our former Prime Minister, I cannot knock him down for this, because during this crisis, this world crisis, Canada was certainly involved. During the lockdowns, people were not getting money. They were not earning their way. What the government did was they did hand out the CERB to people, so that was money so people could survive. Government money. It was also the government also handed out checks to the businesses and that to try and help them survive. So we were in full crisis mode as it was. So this is where I really feel that I think things were changing just prior to the pandemic, but we didn't quite realize yet. It wasn't until we came out of the pandemic we just realized how bad it was. It gave the chance for all this crime to start up. When landlords shouldn't have been raising their rents, they were raising the rents, even though for a while we had some kind of rent controls on that were taken right off by our provincial premier right after the emergency and the pandemic was over. So that didn't help. It was a lot of what went on right after the pandemic too, that we just, all of a sudden, it was like we had homeless people roaming the streets we'd never seen before. We had the crime rates going up we had never seen before. When you talk about what this next video is on fraud and that, people were closed in. So they were brought more into the social media because, and these fraud scams, because we weren't going out to work. We weren't going out to do our daily walks or our runs or just out to our shopping the same. And we had to wear the masks and that. And it was a very difficult time. And I'm very grateful for the government to help get us through that time. And I think people need to really remember what they did. Because all I see is the opposition leader here whining and crying about what the former Prime Minister did, all the things that, there were supposedly scandalous with him that were investigated, and he's blaming the RCMP. And this is what my parents used to tell me, and my grandfather too, is, people don't want all these rules and regulations. This is what's happening as well in the States right now. But the people who whine the most are usually the people that have something to hide. And I think that's a good thing to remember. Like I said, I am so grateful that I was brought up in the time that I was brought up. And a lot of us seniors, we talked together and we said, boy, we had the best life ever. Now, just before the budget comes out on the 4th of November, the Prime Minister last night did a speech, a pre-budget speech to the young people. He was trying to address them, and I thought it was excellent, because it showed what we went through. As growing up, he said, yes, I went to college. Our days were definitely different. That's to be expected. Everything is different. For sure, growing up, we all have our different experiences. We were lucky. We had jobs when we walked out of college, or we got our education back then. And people are educated, can't get jobs today. And there's so many things that are wrong with our society today. But the fact that everybody is blaming the government, don't forget, we had 5 years of, we lived through pure hell, as well as we had Trump at the beginning of that. and we were trying to get through that part. Then, thankfully, Biden came in, and things looked like they were getting back to a little bit more normal. But it was going to take time, and it was our former prime minister, who also worked with Biden at the time, that tried to get cross-border trade, everything going so that we could get back up to par, both countries. So it was a matter of we had a relationship there. People have forgotten about that very close relationship. And the fact that both economies are so entwined with each other, we need each other to survive. So people keep blaming, and that's not fair. And now, of course, our new prime minister, even though it's still a Liberal government, is certainly not our former prime minister, who did the best he could under the circumstances. But the fact that we have someone who knows how to handle money, knows how to do things, and he's preparing us. Now, as our generation, as the baby boomers, we didn't go through World War I, World War II. We did not go through the Great Depression like our parents did. But we were taught and shown that they wanted us to have everything in our generation. And our generation and the generations coming up behind us certainly want the best for the generations coming up behind them too. So we have to make a plan. We have to chart a course. Now, what I am seeing is, I'm not saying that the Prime Minister is making the most perfect plan, but it's a plan. And I have not seen anything coming out from the opposition that's saying that they've got a plan to get us out of this. It's just, cut the budget, cut everything, cut it. And I can see where everybody in the federal government is upset over losing their jobs. But I think what I got from what the Prime Minister said last night on the pre-budget was there's going to have to be sacrifices made. And this is one of the things that the older generations told me. To get ahead, sometimes sacrifices have to be made. We have to go back a few steps before we can go forward a few steps. And this is one of the things that Prime Minister Churchill, during the Second World War, when you listen to his speeches and that, and I was told by these seniors and that, the generation before us, that he was preparing us for some hard times ahead. And our Prime Minister Carney right now is trying to prepare us that we're going to have some hard sacrifices to go through. But as Canadians, and this is always what we had to remember, and this is what the older generation before me always said, that the Canadians, we as Canadians, we are resilient, resourceful, and prepared to sacrifice so that we can have a better future for our young people. And I think our young people really need to realize that there's going to be a lot of sacrifices that they have to make. And it's not their fault. It's not no one's fault there. Like I said, there was unprecedented circumstances in the last 5 years that has created this situation. But when you see people like complaining and whining over things, and from the past things, as my parents and my grandparents used to say, well, why concentrate on the former prime minister? Because our prime minister today is not the same prime minister, and he's trying to get us out of the situation that we're in right now. And I think at least he's got a plan, maybe not perfect, but we have to give him the benefit of the doubt. Just like our ancestors said, give the government the benefit of the doubt. And we don't want the government to fall, and we definitely don't want the government to fall, because we don't want to be in another election right now with all this going on. It's only going to cause more chaos. So it's extremely important. We need to stick to our guns right now, give the government a chance, give these programs that they're putting out a chance to see how they're going. Yes, we're having some starts and stops. That's normal. We seem to go ahead, and then we suddenly come up with into a brick wall, and then we have to go back and think and go forward again. That's the way it's always been. But give the government a chance, for goodness sakes, people. Just because you hear, I guess my grandfather said it best with politicians. You get politicians that have a tendency to talk out of one side of their mouth, then they talk out of the other side of the mouth, and it sounds totally different from one side of the mouth to the other side of the mouth, because the right side of the mouth doesn't know what the left side of the mouth is saying. But lately I've been hearing literally some politicians just talking out of both sides of their mouth at the same time. And it's kind of like when I get tripped up, when tongue-tied, as I put it, and can't come out with the correct words sometimes. But that's what it sounds like. So what you hear is not only what you're going to say. And this is what Trump did to get the votes that he got, unfortunately. Now I'm going to go on to the next video. And I just want people to think on that right now. And it's about fraud and all associations with crimes and what their plans are for the Liberal government right now that need to pass, need to get through. And it's not a matter, as my parents and my grandparents used to say, sometimes you have to spend money to make money. And you don't cut people off all to what's going on in the States. It's one thing to have problems with the system, but you don't dismantle the whole system at the same time because you think it's all right to do it. It's systematically, you have to go through each part of the system and see where it can be improved, maybe do some pilot projects and that. But I really feel that this video you're going to see is definitely a way forward into the future. So for the young people out there that I'm talking to right now, please listen to the elders' wisdom here. We've been through it up to a point. Our parents, our grandparents definitely shielded us from a lot of the things that they went through. But don't forget, Canadians are resourceful, we're resilient, and we can prepare to take some bumps along on sacrifices along the line. Because only through sacrifice, through working together, do we actually get somewhere. So I'm going to leave it there, everyone, today. Just be thoughtful, think about things, be very careful what you hear and what people say, that they're not talking out either one side of the mouth or the other, or out of both sides of the mouth at the same time. So everyone, take care, be safe, watch your surroundings, and we'll talk again soon. And bye-bye.